don't know if that was good enough, Aaron. I guess they needed a little more.
I asked for recognition.
There we go.
It was. I was
The
just setting
senator
up the
from
stream and
Superior.
everything, so we are live
Okay,
now.
yeah, yeah, you're good. You're good. The
Mm,
senator from Superior is recognized.
This is being recorded now. Okay. Um. Firstly, I personally want to give my heart out to um uh everyone who were affected during that embassy attack. Um. We all can say, we give our hearts and prayers to an issue like this, but it takes action to really resolve a situation as of this. My only concern, when it comes to the idea of drone strikes, is for the possible killings of innocent bystanders, and that's not what I want, and that's what I'm hoping will not happen if this is authorized. I believe that there should be retaliation, of course. I don't think anyone else disagrees with that fact. Uh, but I believe that we should come into this sort of retaliation uh, with at least an agreement with our other allies. So there is a more global agreement towards the U.S.'s reaction to what has happened to the people in Palestine. I yield back.
Mr. President.
Senator Yield, the senior senator from New Columbia, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to first start by saying I respect and mostly agree with Senator Jones' opinion here. I think it is important that these drone strikes are targeted and do what need to be done and not go overboard. And I think that's the sentiment mostly put out there. But I think we all agree with the sentiments and thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims. My disagreement, however, is the fact that there are 100, by the current estimate, possibly more, innocent bystanders that were killed at their hands. I'm not saying that makes it okay that innocent Palestinian bystanders would be killed as a result, but I think it's important to really take in the fact that they have done just as much damage or more damage to not only Israel, but now they're doing a direct attack on us by attacking our embassy, and that must be met with force. I'm 100% confident that the president will do the right thing, and I would hope that everyone here would support the president in this endeavor. This is not a time for political attacks. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not saying that Senator Jones was saying that. This is just another broad call of something I wanted to add to my speech. I forgot. To put politics aside, I know there is a presidential election in just a few days, but to stand behind our president in the same way that you would want the pilot of your airplane to succeed. But with that said, hopefully more people will be able to speak on the subject because it is a very important one. It's the number one reason we convene today. We wouldn't normally have multiple sessions per week, but this was a special circumstance, and I hope we get a lot of things done here. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Is there any other senator who wishes to speak?
One last thing, I seek recognition.
Sure. The junior senator of Superior is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respect the response from the President pro tempore, Mr. Scott, and I only just have one last question here when it comes to this issue, and if any other senator doesn't want to speak, then I guess this can be the end of it. But the UN did recognize Palestine as a governing territory within Israel, and if in when it comes to my opinion, personally, if it is within their authority to watch over the actions of, we'll just say, Hamas, for example. And for what they do targets Israeli citizens, then that should be their business, which I'm sure many other people should agree. But on this issue alone, uh, uh, as they attack American citizens, is in killing over 100 people, not just from the United States, but other people from abroad. The retaliation of our airstrikes could come into, I would say, questioning, to say the least, within the United Nations in their recognition of Palestine and Israel itself. But I'm only saying that off of a recognition that was made over 20 years ago, which is something that could be faded off. But huh? Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Like, well, I don't necessarily understand the argument you're trying to make, Jamal, Senator. I mean,
Wait.
are you trying to say airstrikes would put into question the United Nations recognition of Palestine as a state within Israel?
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, well, what do you mean exactly? Could you?
Well, I
Maybe
mean,
I'm not understanding.
I feel like I was pretty clear. How would U.S. airstrikes on Palestinian targets put into question the United Nations recognition of Palestine as a state within
Well,
Israel?
I'm not saying as if myself. I'm just saying from the UN's perspective. I just personally think
Well,
that we should, you know, speak within our allies first before making something as of this. And the only reason why I bring up the United Nations is because they have, stood up and made condemnations of airstrikes and other actions in the past. I,
well, I mean,
I mean, I'm just,
but you agree
I don't.
but you agree that not every decision in the United States or Canada, for that matter, hinges on what the United Nations determines.
Yes, but I
Okay.
yes, but I
So,
just
I mean,
I don't want us to be seen as us violating international human rights or whatever would be fabricated on
well,
by
I
members of
think
the
people
United Nations.
understand what national defense is, and I would just trying to clarify the beginning question again, or what you said originally again. I mean, you said the United Nations would, if airstrikes happened, put into question Palestine's status. And then you said that's not your opinion; that it's the United Nations' opinion. Where are you getting that opinion from? Where is the perspective that the United Nations would change Palestine's status as a result of airstrikes? Where are you getting that
Well,
perspective from?
Palestine itself isn't a self-governing country. They don't have a president. They they have there is a political party. I don't have to really explain this, but they aren't 100% independent as
Correct. They
a
were recognized
as a,
as a state within Israel by the United
yes,
Nations.
yes, exactly.
Right.
I
So
mean
how I don't understand.
that was all that no that, that was all I was trying to say, as them being a state within Israel. And
Okay.
I'm just
So
saying that
wouldn't it be? Doesn't that solidify the argument of airstrikes against key Palestinian targets? Given the fact
oh
that
yeah, I never
given the
said I
fact that
was.
uh, it's within Israel's borders, technically, as you just said.
Yes, I'm just saying that uh, on a global reaction of airstrikes and stuff, I don't want the United States to be seen as, as the bad guy, or
Well,
pushing to that sort of
If
level
I can come in real
as
quick,
something we may have done in the past. That is my only concern on this matter. But I'm not opposed towards airstrikes.
before I defer to Senator Scott about this, I'll just say I don't think that the world lacks the common sense to see that the United States and Israel is being threatened by terrorists. With that, Senator Scott, I'll defer to you.
Okay, that's not
thank
what
you.
I
I just
was
wanted to point out
into.
briefly that if you've been reading the news headlines lately, the president has been holding meetings almost, if not every day, with world leaders, our NATO allies, and clearly he is trying to get a broad consensus, as he should, that the United States is in the right, and to make sure that every world leader knows that, if they were in the same position, we would be helping them out, and that we expect the same of our allies. I don't think any country, even our strongest adversaries, would think that we are going this alone.
Okay.
I do think it's an important sentiment to make sure that we have the backing of the world, or of our allies, that is. But I don't think that's something we necessarily need to worry about at this time. But that's all I had to say.
Would a senator yield?
I will yield.
The senator yields.
Um,
Senator Sanders has the floor.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that this session was able to happen, and I'm happy to see so many senators show up on such a short notice, as Senator Scott said. I also had a meeting with Mr. Cawthorn earlier today, and he asked me probably the same question, and my answer was similar. I mean, I said I don't support war in this instance, but I do support, however, airstrikes using our military might in the Middle East and Israel's military might within their own country to take out Palestinian targets. Not only does that effectively scare Palestine and show our might as a nation, showing our reluctance to capitulation when it comes to terrorist threats, but it also puts Iran on its tippy toes. I mean, Iran will have to really think about whether or not it wants to provide support to what is essentially a terrorist regime within Israel. And in doing so, we can help avoid what would be a much larger, a much bloodier, and a much more destructive war with Iran, which would, most likely cause World War III with Saudi Arabia and everything. So I'm going to be introducing a resolution in just a few seconds. I've showed it to Mr. Patrick. I haven't showed it to anyone else. It's an authorization of use of military force for the President of the United States. This authorization makes it clear that infantry is not allowed to be used. Infantry is not authorized. So anyone's concerns about men and women being shipped overseas to Israel, more men and women being shipped overseas to Israel, because we have to make it clear that we have people in Israel now, is not going to happen under this legislation. What is under this legislation is authorization for the Secretary of Defense to draw up plans to find targets within Palestine to take out and to show Palestine essentially who's boss. This quick and decisive action is what was needed and what is needed. And if it's not about war games or or pumping up the military-industrial complex, which is where those anti-war sentiments come from. I agree with those anti-war sentiments. We were lied into war before. But this is not Iraq. Okay, this is not weapons of mass destruction. This is our oldest ally in the world threatened by a terrorist regime with backing from what is one of the more dangerous regimes in our world, Iran. And if the United States doesn't stand up to this, if we listen to the pacifists within our nation, we will be seen as cowards across the world. China will make it, it makes it much easier for China to negotiate with third world countries and say who would normally be attached to the United States, and it makes it much easier for China to go to them and say, hey, look at the United States. It's weak. It can't even defend Israel. It can't even defend what is its strongest ally, a nation where it gives almost $5 billion a year to. This is really dangerous for our standing on the world stage if we listen to the pacifists in the House of Representatives, of whom I have great respect for. But everyone in the House of Representatives has said they don't support any use of military force. That's what they just said in the House session. I think we have to make it clear as a Senate, and I hope we can receive unanimous support for this, that we do support strategic bombing of high-profile targets of Palestine to, peace through strength, to make sure that we can achieve peace through strength and pumping up our standing in the region. This is a pretty common sense piece of legislation, and I will copy and paste it when I have in just now on my phone, and stalling so I can do that. It's in the Senate chamber right now. I urge everyone to look at the authorization of military force. I haven't spoken to the administration about this, but given the statements from the vice president of fire and fury, I think we have the support of the executive branch that we need, and a unanimous support of this from the Senate would ensure that the House of Representatives would have to take a second look at this. I'm saddened by the members in the House of Representatives using this as a political issue, trying to use this as a wedge issue, making this war or anti-war. This isn't either. This is quite simply defense of the moral argument in this world. Defense, as it's a similar argument as I made to China. It's defense of what is the last bastion of hope for a world which is threatened by authoritarian oligarchy across the world. So we really have to make a stand here. We really have to show the world that the United States is willing to make and can make decisive and big and bold decisions in this world. I urge everyone in the Senate to support this, not for war, not for the military-industrial complex, not because bombs are cool or whatever, but because Israel needs our help, and there's a moral argument that needs our defense. And I think that everyone in the Senate understands that. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
The senator yields. I was told that Senator Williams, the junior senator from Shoshone, would like the floor if he's ready to speak. He's recognized. If not, then we can move on. Okay. All right. Yeah, you're recognized. Yes, sir. Yes, please. You don't have a speech ready. I mean, I don't. Okay. All right. Let me know when you're done. I don't think you have to have a formal speech because I don't think Senator Sanders had a formal speech that he was reading. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Moving on. Any other senator would who would like to speak? May. Okay. Doesn't sound like. Okay.
If there is no opposition, Mr. President, I motion to adjourn.
Is there an objection? Is he Cawthorn is typing? I don't know if that's an objection. Okay. Without objection, the motion is agreed to. So